Hey guys, welcome back to a new episode of DevDrawer. Today we're going to be going over how to take what we've previously done with the Swagger documentation and the API that we've created, and we're going to create some authorization for it. So I know I've been putting this off for a little while because it is kind of in-depth, and if you've never done it before, it's kind of difficult. So I'm going to show you how to do that. I'm going to show you how to create the tokenization that you need in order to access these pages. And for the most part, you wouldn't really need, for what we currently use in this project for, you wouldn't really need authorization for it unless you wanted to create your own backend for the create, the update, and the delete part of the API. But for right now, everything is just kind of, there is no administration for it. So normally you would have a user and a password field that they would log into, and then that would create the token. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to show you how to generate the token using this Swagger documentation, and then eventually I'll get to where we'll integrate that into the front end of the site, where you won't be able to read the pages or view any of the pages without having this authorization token. Now again, this isn't something that you would normally do, but because of the way our project is currently set up, it's the easiest way for me to show you how to do it. Just keep that in mind as you're watching this tutorial, that this would actually be probably part of the administrative side of it rather than the front end side of it like we're going to be using it. So before I get started into it, I've noticed a lot of new likes, a lot of comments that are happening on the videos, and I do appreciate it. If you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, please do. My subscription numbers are going up every day, and it's something that keeps driving me to create these videos for you guys. So I know that you like it, and I'm hoping that it's helping you as much as it's helped me in the past whenever I saw videos like this. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. One of the things that you might notice with Swagger is there is no place to create this authorization. So we need to create a API route that handles the authorization, and it's a pretty simple, easy thing to do. So let me go ahead and close out of, get that out of the way, go ahead and close out of these pages. Those pages, we're not going to be updating those right now. But let's go ahead and we're going to create a new route inside of our version 1. Let's see, go over here to version 1, and we're going to create a new page in here. We're just going to call it authorization. So let's create a new file and call it auth.php. And then inside of this auth.php, I'm essentially going to take what we have in some of the other pages, like for example, let's do the read for now. I'm just going to copy this and I'm going to paste it, and I'm going to remove all the stuff that we're not going to be using. So first, we don't need to have any of this for now, and we can keep the 404 there, so let's change this to, if it's failed, let's just say something like could not create the token for this API. Please contact your administrator. Alright, so that should be enough to kind of get us started. And we don't need the row count because we're not returning a row count for this one. And we're just going to call our variable token so that we can kind of keep it together. That's not even what I'm going to do. Let's go here. We're going to call this token, and we're going to be in the new pages. That's fine, past that. So now we're going to do token, and then we're going to create a function, and let's go ahead and we're going to call it auth as well. So this is basically the same thing as a regular get. I mean, we're not using it as a get right now. We're actually going to be, I guess we are kind of using it as a get. We're going to be just accessing this page to generate that token for us, and we're actually going to use JWT to create that token for us, and I'll show you how to download those scripts in just a second, but I'm going to go ahead and get this part set up. So first thing we want to do is we're going to create a function called auth inside of our pages.php. So go over here and let's take it and put it right above the read. So let's do public function auth, And then inside of this, we're going to utilize JWT. So let's go ahead and add that to our API. And if you Google PHP JWT, let me put that over here. So PHP JWT, that'll bring you to Firebase on GitHub. That's the one that we want to use. So we have some calls that we need to make. So since we're already using Composer, we're going to go ahead and open up a new terminal. And in here, we're going to cd to the API directory, because that's where we want it to reside. We want it to be inside of this folder, which is inside of our API folder. And then we're just going to copy and paste what they have here. So Composer require Firebase PHP-JWT, and then we're going to run it. So while that's running, it'll take a little bit, but you'll be able to see that this folder is fixing to be updated with the Firebase folder right here. And it's done, so that's good. So now what we need to do is call the autoload inside of our pages.php, and right above this we're just going to type out something. And again, I like to use this variable just because it makes sure that I know exactly where everything is. So server, and then we're going to do document_root, and then /API/vendor, and then autoload.php. And basically this is just pointing to this vendor autoload.php file, and that's what's going to grab our autoload in order for us to import or use the Firebase JWT class and then the JWT functionality. Not user, use. There we go. And you can also refer down. You can see that this is where I kind of got that at. So use Firebase JWT JWT. Because of the way we have it currently loaded, that's why I'm using this to grab the autoload, because I don't think I'm calling the autoload anywhere else inside of this. I think the autoload currently is being used by the documentation part of it for this. So currently this isn't being called anywhere, and where we have it at right now is just, you would have like an initialize.php page where you would call all of this stuff, but since this is the only class that we have for our pages, this is where we're going to add it to. Now they also give you some examples of what you can type in, and we're not going to be using the OpenSSL. We're going to be using the default example, and I'll explain a little bit of what these values are as I'm typing them in. So we're going to create a variable for the IAT. The IAT is the time when this JWT was issued. It's just you can kind of create the sessions that match with what you want people to be able to access the API using. So for example, we can create the issue date and the expiration date, and then have it where the expiration date is 60 seconds after it was issued, or 60 minutes, or 2 days, or whatever it is. But for right now, we're just going to do IAT equals time, and then we're going to create another variable called EXP for expiration, and then that's basically going to be IAT plus 60 seconds. And I'm going to go ahead and just give it a long time right now, just so we can test it. So we're going to do time 60. So that should give it, math is not working with me right now, but basically the time that it currently is plus 60 seconds times 60. So that's a lot of time. My math for how that actually would look is going to be off, but you get the point of it. You can change that to whatever you want to. And then we're going to send over a variable called payload, and this is going to be an array. And again, this is something that you can take directly off of this section over here. Basically, what you're going to be passing along is the issuer, the audience, the IAT that we created, and then the expiration that we've created. So let's go ahead and do issuer, which is going to be our API. What is it? What is our URL for this? Live API.local. Okay, live API.local, and then /API. So this is going to be our issuer, and then down here we're going to do our audience, which currently we only have one audience, so it's kind of easy. We don't even need to do anything with this. It's just going to be the main site that's calling it. We're going to do live test.local, and then we're going to be passing in our IAT, and that's just going to be the variable that we've created. And then we're going to be passing in the expiration, which again is going to be the variable that we created. So let's I'm going to put a comment here just so you know what they are. So this is the issuer, this is the audience, this is the issue, let's do time JWT was issued, and then finally time JWT expires. Okay, and then let's go ahead and close this off. So for our authentication, this is the variables we're going to be sending over to our JWT functionality. And again, you can refer back over to this page over here to see how to actually pass it. They're missing something over here, which I'm going to add in hours, just because I want to pass over the HS2 or HS512, which let me see, HS512. I can't remember exactly what it stands for, but we're going to do HS512 and see if I can describe to you what it actually is. Okay, well, that's not helping at all. There we go. HMAC SHA-512. So you can do, there's a few different ones that you can do. I believe they give you a link somewhere on their page here for how you can, where you can go. So this right here, this will kind of give you the algorithms that you can choose from. So we're going to use HS512 for hours, whereas 256 is essentially the same thing as HS512. It's just using a the encoding for it is SHA-256 instead of SHA-512. So it just kind of depends on what you're wanting to do. But for hours, we're going to be using the HS512. A lot of numbers going on here. Okay, so let's go ahead and create that. So we're going to create a variable called JWT, and it's going to equal to JWT encode, and then we're going to pass that payload, and then we're going to have to create a key. So let's go ahead and I'm just going to put in this key for now, and then we'll create this key in just a second. And then we're going to pass in HS512. What am I doing wrong here? Oh, there we go. Okay, so up here, let's go right below our connection. We're going to create a private variable, and it's going to be called key. And you can call this whatever you want to make it more secure. I'm just going to add in the words private key, but definitely make that something that's encrypted. But for this purpose, we don't really need to have a high level of encryption on this demo that we're doing, but yours would be, you know, create a SHA-512 encryption key right here, paste it in, and that'll be your key that it has to validate it against. Okay, so now we've created the JWT. It's going to use the Firebase JWT in order to encode it with the information that we're passing to it. It's going to use our key that we've established, and then it's going to encrypt it. So what we want to do is now return an array, and inside of this array we're going to pass a token, which is going to be the JWT, and then we're also going to pass an expires, just in case we want to use that for the front end as well. But again, this isn't something that we're focusing on right now. Then let's close that. So now we should have a authentication function that if they go to the authentication page, then they would be able to, it would run that authentication to grab that code for us. So let's come in here and we need to return. So we're going to echo our JSON encode, and then we're going to pass the token off. So it's basically just going to return that response here, or it's going to return this array to us, and then it's going to pass it to the front end of the API so it can be used however it needs to be used. Right now, it's just going to be used inside of our inside of our Swagger, where we're just going to create another file up here that's going to be auth, and then when we click on it, it's going to generate that code, and that's where you're going to be able to use it for the rest of the other functionality here. So in order to make this appear, we need to, inside of our pages.php, we need to basically, let's copy this, and we're going to add it here. We're going to change this to auth instead of read, and then that's about it, I believe. So if I refresh the page, we should have an auth here, and if we click on it, we try it out, we execute it, it's going to give us our token and the expiration date. So I'm going to go ahead and close out Firebase and this other tab here because we're not using it anymore. Once you got this far with it, you're done with it. Go ahead and close out the terminal as well. So we're going to be using this token in order to create, in order to read, single, create, update, and delete. For right now, there is no authentication, no security method on our API. So let's go ahead and change that. And the way that you do that is by going up here where we have the information about it. We're going to create a new line. And let's go ahead and just push it in one. We're going to do @OA/security scheme. And then we're going to pass what that security scheme is going to be expecting. So inside of this, we're going to pass, and I actually read a comment about the documentation for Swagger and open authentication and stuff like this, and I know that it's if you don't know what you're doing already, it's kind of difficult to kind of understand their documentation. It's one of the things that I really don't like about Swagger is that their documentation is more high level than it is for entry level. So in order to find information that I'm doing right now, I mean, maybe you can Google OA security scheme, you can Google OA information. There's things that you can Google that may be able to help you, but I can't do anything about their documentation. There's not really a place that I can point you guys to that would help you understand it a little bit better. You just got to kind of do it, and then if it doesn't work, try something else. And then you also are going to run into the issue where you're looking at the 3.0 versus the 2.0. So the documentation is a little bit lacking for Swagger. But once you kind of start doing it, it's very repetitive. You just have to kind of figure out what that first point is for you. So you can follow along with this one as closely as possible, and it'll work. If you want to change something else, maybe instead of using a bearer token, you want to use an API key, there's a way that you can do that. So you can switch out some of the things that I'm doing in order to make it work with an API key instead of a bearer token like we're going to do. So just keep in mind that while we're doing this, that I already kind of know what I'm typing here, so it makes it a little bit easier for me to do. And if you have issues, Google is your friend at this point. Okay, so I'm doing a lot of talking, typing's not working. Okay, so right now we are on an insecure server because it is a local server for us. What we're going to do, it's only going to have HTTP encryption, so there's no HTTPS on it. If you were doing this on a live server, you'd want to change that to HTTPS or HTTPS, so you can use both of them. But ours for now is just going to be HTTP. All right, so let's add in our description for what our security is going to be, and then we're just going to put in something, use/auth to get the JWT token. And then let's also we're going to name this, so name equals authorization, because that's what we're going to be looking for whenever we go to grab the variable from the session headers. And it's going to be passed in the header. And we're also going to be using the scheme bearer. If you're not familiar with that, it's basically just an encrypted variable that gets sent over through the header. So bearer and then we're going to be passing the bearer format, which is going to be JWT because that's what we are currently using. So bearer format equals JWT. And then finally, we're going to be passing over the security scheme, and we're going to make that equal to bearer auth. And I believe that is all that we would need to do here in order to get this to show authorization. So let's refresh. And now we have this new button that's called Authorize. If you click on it, it's going to give you a place where you can enter in this authorization token that is going to be generated through here. So in the real world, whenever someone logs in, this route right here would actually be ran automatically. So they would be able to get that bearer token that they need. It's going to be stored as a session variable, and it's going to be pushed out to the API every time they go to use it. For right now, we're doing it the manual way, but I think in the next video, I'll show you how to take what we have on the front end of the website and actually pass it through the AJAX calls. But for now, we're going to have to essentially try it out, copy it, and do this, so forth and so on. But in order to use the token that's being sent over inside of the functions that we currently have here, we are going to have to add another variable to them, and this is going to be security equals, and then open curly bracket, and then we're going to be passing the bearer auth, which is what we called it up there, and then it's going to be blank for now. So it's just going to not contain anything. But this bearer auth is what we called it here. So now, if we refresh the page again, let me go ahead and minimize this. Currently, there's nothing over here, but whenever you have authentication and security added to these routes, there will be a lock over here. So if we refresh, we now see that there is a lock on the read. Obviously, you don't want to have a lock on your authentication because you can't do the authentication route until you get the authentication, or you can't use the authentication until you get it. So for this one, it's going to be completely unlocked. It's going to be just used to generate it. But what I want to show you now is if we hit try it out, it's still going to work because we don't have any of the code inside of our pages that tells it not to work if it doesn't see that that authentication being pushed through. But what we're going to do is add that code that will basically make it when we go to run this again, it's going to give us an error message. So let's go ahead and add that code inside of our read function. And in here, it's a pretty easy code to be able to add it. So if you're using Apache like I am, then this should work for you, but there may be other ways for you to request a header on your own server, but this is the way that I would do it since I'm using Apache. So I'm going to create a variable called headers, and then I'm going to use the PHP function Apache request headers, and then that's going to grab, that's not what I want to do, Apache underscore request headers. That's going to grab all the headers that are being sent over. And then we want to see what's being sent over to us. So let's go ahead and we're going to create a variable called token, and it's going to equal to header authorization. So I wonder if I can show you, actually let's, before we break that out, let me do a print our headers so I can show you what's currently being sent over. So that's probably going to break this. It is. Okay. So right now, because nothing's being saved in our headers, nothing's being sent over. But if we come over here to our authorization, we try it out, and it's going to give us this token. So we're going to copy the token from here, and then we're going to use the authorize button to authorize this. So currently it says that we're logged into the API. So now if we execute this again, we now have an authorization token, which has bearer and then the authorization or the token that was sent over to it. So what we need to do inside of our headers, we need to grab that authorization. So let's come over here and let's create this variable token. Did it again. Token, and then we're going to make it equal to the headers and the authorization key. Initialization. Okay. So right now, if we echo out token and we refresh our browser, or not refresh it, but we execute it again, you can see that it's passing the word bearer and a space with it before you get to that token. So what we want to do on this headers is remove that. And we're just going to use a simple function called string replace. And we're going to remove bearer space, and we're just going to replace it with nothing. That way that we can actually get the correct authorization token. So it's just another encryption method that's on there to make sure that it's doing what we want it to do. All right, so now that that's removed, that's what we want to see, is that it's actually pushing over that token. So now we need to do a try, because if you don't do a try statement, it's essentially going to try to process that, and if the token doesn't exist, it's going to give you an error message instead of giving you the correct return that you're looking for. So on this side of it, we're going to do try, and then we're going to have all of this is going to eventually be inside of our try. So we're going to try this token, so token, and then we're going to equal to JWT decode, and then we're going to pass in that information. And if you can't remember what, I'll already close it out, but if you do, let's see, Firebase JWT. If you look on their GitHub page, you'll see that they have a decode function right here. So this is essentially what we're writing right now, the decode. So that's just going to verify that that token is actually something that has been encrypted on our server and it's being used, so it's something that we can actually pull from in order to get the information. One thing that I didn't tell y'all about is up here you actually have the ability to send data. So if we go back over here, actually I don't think that they have it here. So we have inside of our payload, we can send over username, an encrypted password, their account level, all this other kind of stuff can be encrypted inside of that JWT token. Right now we're not doing that because we're essentially just reading from a page, but if you had someone that was logging into your system, you could give them that information and have it encrypted inside that token, and then whenever it gets decoded over here, you could use that information for them to be able to look up certain things based on their level without giving away what their level is inside of the browser. Okay, so back to the code. So we're going to do try, and let's go ahead and just fix this so it doesn't break it anymore. So catch, we're going to do exception E, and then we're going to end that. We're just going to return false if it doesn't decode the way we want it to. So the variables that we need to pass over here is first the token, which is here. And then we're going to pass again this key, which will grab our key from up here so that it knows that this is the one it needs to decode. And then we're also going to be passing in the encryption method that we used, which is the HS512. So that should be able to decrypt our token. So we're going to take this, we're going to cut it from here, and we're going to paste it in here. And there. Nope. There. Okay, so now it's going to try to decrypt our token that's being sent over. If it fails, it's going to return false. If it passes, it's going to run the code that we want it to. So now if we come over to our UI, I'm just going to refresh the page so it gets rid of the authorization that we've done. And now if we come over here and we hit try it out, execute, it's currently we don't have the front end of the read page that actually displays anything if there is a if there's an error in it. It just displays the HTML code, which we'll fix this in just a second. One other thing that I just thought of is that if you can see in the error message here, it says undefined index authorization. That's because we didn't send anything over. So right now it's checking to see if the token is valid, but currently there is no token. So before we hit our try statement over here, we need to check to see if the header's authorization is there, and if it's not, return false again. So let's do if is set and then headers authorization, and then we can bring all of this inside of that, and then do an else, return false, and then end if. So with this, we should be able to run this again, and it's no longer displaying the error that it can't find the authorization, but it's still displaying the error because it's looking for our row count. So if we go to our read, this is where it's currently erroring out at, is trying to get that row count, even though it technically doesn't exist. So I'm going to come over here, and what we need to do here is we're pushing back a false, and if it's true, we want to run it. If it's false, we want it to do something else. So over here, we can do if statement, and then have all of this contained inside of that if statement, else, end if. So essentially what this is going to do, if it's returning false, it's going to not do any of this, and it's going to actually come down here, and we're going to put a response here, and it said, let's just say it's going to do your token did not match the expected token. Please contact an administrator. I think that should be all that we need here. Okay, so now if we rerun this code, it should give us our error message. There we go. It says your token did not match the expected token. So, and you can change that message. You can say that your token hasn't been set. Whatever you want to say. But for right now, let's try to authorize it with a inaccurate code. So let's do 1, 2, 3, 4, and close that, and let's hit execute. And it's still failing because inside of our code over here, that if it even though it's being set now, if it doesn't work inside of our try statement, it's going to return false. So it's currently returning false. But if we come over here to our authorize and try it out, we're going to be gathering this token, and we're going to authorize it. So let's log that one out, put a new one in, close it, get rid of that, and now if we hit execute, it reads the pages as it should. So just in case you're wondering what's happening to the front end of our website right now, well, without that token, the front end is not displaying the menu. Or here, let's do this. Okay, so resize it so y'all can see it a little bit better. But currently it is not displaying the menu because this read is what gathers the menu items for us. So on the next tutorial, I'll show you how to bring that where the AJAX actually passes over the authorization token. But for now, we're going to not worry about the front end because we want to manage the back end primarily. Alright, so we got this one working, and let's go ahead and bring this back up to where it was. Let's cancel this and refresh so we're completely unlocked. So now we want to do the same thing with all of our other functions. We want to have them all use this bearer authentication. So underneath your responses for each one of them, for your error codes, we're just going to paste in the security methods. So now if we refresh this page, wait, what did I do? Security, comma. Put a comma before it. Refresh it. So now we have both of those that are going to be looking for that bearer authorization. Alright, so let's do comma, do that one again, and do it again down here. And again, you wouldn't necessarily do this for each one of your pages in your API. For example, the read and the single don't have to be locked behind an API. The create, update, and delete should be, but it would be better if you had it inside of an administrative API rather than a front-end API. So just keep that in mind. We're just going to be adding it to all of our functions just to prove a proof of concept here. And then we don't need it for that. So if we refresh this, all of our routes now have a lock on them. And the good news is that whenever you authorize one of them, it authorizes all of them. So we can come over here and get rid of that. Let's authorize it. And now each one of these show the locks that are currently locked because you are authorized inside of it. And we need to create the functionality for the other ones. But again, this one still works because it's got the correct information being displayed. The create it's still going to work right now because we're not actually passing anything to it. But what we want to do is code the other functions to do the exact same thing that we did for our read. So let's scroll back up to our read here, and essentially what we need to do to make this as easy as possible is just go in here and add this code for each one of them and then just change out what it's expecting. So for the read, we're going to come over here, we're just going to copy it, and let's just go ahead and I'm going to paste it here, put a little space between so I know which one I'm looking at. I'm going to paste it here, a little space between, then I'm going to paste it here with a space between, and then here with a space between. So now that we have that pasted, so this is the one we pasted it from, we're going to take this and we're just going to throw it in where the functionality is. So let's get rid of the spaces now, and we keep the token because that's definitely what we need, but everything else can be replaced with the code that's actually supposed to be there. Alright, so that looks good. Now scroll down, we got our spacing, so let's copy this. Get rid of the spacing, and then from here to the token, we're going to it uncopied what I copied. Okay, so let's copy that again and go back to this and paste it in, move it over so it's pretty. Okay, now let's do the same thing with this one. Okay, here, and then underneath the token all the way to where the return is, I'm going to paste it in. And then I think this is going to be our last one we have to do. So we copy that code again, and from the return to right below the token, paste it in, make it pretty, and now all of our functions are currently using the same functionality that our read had. So if we refresh this again, and let's go to single, let's try it out, and one of the slugs is about, we hit execute. Again, this is one of those issues where the front end of it needs to be coded the same way as here because it's looking for this row count. So we're going to go to single, and we're going to do if statement, and then we're going to do our else statement, which I'm just going to copy from the read page. So our else statement is going to be here, and we're just going to paste that down. So now if we rerun this, now it says that our token did not match, but if we come over here and we grab a token, execute, copy that, let's paste it inside of our authorize, and now if we try to read it again, it gives us correct information because it's passing over that token and it's looking for it. Now with the update and the delete and the create, we already have a response code that if the page isn't updated for whatever reason, it's just going to return an unsuccessful. So we don't really have to add that code that we did for the single where it's, you know, looking at the statement to see if it's returning anything, because technically we don't care about it at this point because we already have an error message that says that if it's been updated or not, and then that's going to be based on this pages where it's actually returning what it needs to. So if it returns false, it's automatically going to show this error message that it was not successfully updated anyway, so we don't have to worry about the front end part of that display. So if we come over here to the update and let's try it out, let me log into the database real quick to make sure. So live pages, The about page is ID2, so let's do, let's first try it without anything happening, which it should fail. Nope, updated successfully. That's because I just added the HTML to it. That's fine. So let's refresh this, and now that changes, which that's fine. We can update that at a later time. But if we try to run it again without changing anything, it's going to say that it's failed. And then let's go ahead and, just to test it out, refresh the page, try to update it without any authorization, and it's going to give us that page was not updated successfully. That's because we're not passing anything. And then I don't have to do the rest of them because the other pages are going to be the exact same. So you got your update, delete, and your create. They're all going to be displaying the error messages. So as long as we have it coded over here correctly, then it'll still update where it needs to on this side of it. So I think, let me check my time. 40 minutes. This is a lot longer than I thought it was going to be. So I think for now, we are done with this tutorial. Basically what I wanted to show you was how to create the session and the tokens and everything in order to be able to pass it along and prevent people from being able to run this code without having previously been authorized. So that's going to do it for this tutorial. I think the next tutorial I'm actually going to show you the front end of this. So it's going to be live api.local, and what I'm going to show you on this one is how to generate this menu, which currently there's nothing there. Also how to get to the pages using the API, using Ajax in order to kind of generate this this authorization URL, store it as a session variable, and then use that as part of your Ajax to be able to push it out to be able to view everything else. But that's going to be another tutorial that I do, so stay on the lookout for that maybe next week. But if you liked this video and you haven't subscribed to the channel, please do. It does, I like seeing the numbers going up. I like seeing the comments that are happening. If there's anything else that you want me to take a look at, that you want me to try to work on, if you want me to expand upon this a little bit more, let me know in the comments, and I'll try to do what I can, and hopefully you learn something. So if you haven't already, smash the thumbs up for me and let me know that you like this video. If you didn't like the video, tell me why you didn't like it in the comments, and I'll try to make it better next time. But for now, I'm going to go ahead and call this one, and I will talk to you later.